every 80 years you have a cycle of a crisis cycle where the rules change. The last one before this was World War II and the Depression. Before that was the Civil War in 65. Before that was the Revolutionary War in 76, started in 76. And so every 80 years, kind of society gets thrown on its ear and a new set of rules come out of the other side. And I think we're at the end of the 80-year cycle, that started post-World War II when we had fabulous growth and the United States was on top of the world. If that's the case, that would imply that, we will resolve this cycle sometime late this decade, early in the 2030s.
In their 1997 book, The Fourth Turning, An American Prophecy, authors William Strauss and Neil Howe discuss a concept they call the fourth turning. This concept describes a recurring generation cycle in history divided into 4 phases or turnings, each lasting about 20 to 25 years. According to this concept, society moves through these 4 turnings in a cyclical pattern, lasting roughly 80 to 100 years. The first turning is the high, a period of recovery and consolidation after a major crisis. Think of the post-World War II boom in the United States. Next comes the awakening, during which society experiences a spiritual awakening or cultural upheaval, much like the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s and 70s. Then comes the unraveling, during which society begins to break down. There is marked political polarization, and individualism is strong. This is quickly followed by the fourth turning, or the crisis phase, where society faces a major crisis, which could be economic, political, military, or often a combination of all. According to the authors, the current fourth turning began with the global financial crisis in 2008 and is expected to last until the mid-2020s before a complete breakdown occurs and societal reorganization becomes inevitable. During a recent interview with Simple Bitcoin, sound money advocate Lawrence Lepard discusses the impending financial crisis and the role of hard assets like Bitcoin and Hold in the coming revolution. According to the popular portfolio manager and Bitcoin maximalist, society is on the brink of an inevitable political and economic collapse, leading to the death of existing systems and the rebuilding of better, stronger systems to take humanity through another full 100-year cycle. One of the first systems to go will undoubtedly be the fiat monetary system, which is already showing serious signs of trouble. To rebuild, Lepard says the world will turn to hard assets like Bitcoin and gold, which, unlike fiat currencies, cannot be simply created out of thin air. With this rebuilding, Lepard predicts a massive explosion in the price of these assets, spurred by the rapidly growing demand as investors finally realize that the entire monetary system is broken. As we bring you clips from Lawrence Lepard's interview, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
There's $900 billion of fiat assets, right? I mean, real estate, stocks, bonds, cash, you name it. And there's $1 trillion or $900 trillion of fiat assets. There's $1 trillion of market value in Bitcoin. There's about 12 trillion, maybe a little more now that gold's up in gold, but really only about half of that's for sale because a lot of it is in jewelry and museums and so forth. And so call it 6 trillion. I mean, that 900 trillion is getting debased every year, everywhere, because money supply is growing. So as Preston says, there are more monetary units chasing the same goods and services. And so, as that 900 trillion starts to worry about their debasement, they're going to start to choose a form of money that can't be debased. And they really only have 3 choices, Bitcoin, gold, and silver.
Yeah.
And so all of which represent money. And so, that is going to, in my opinion, drive the price of all 3 of those assets to levels that people today can't even imagine. And I get it because, they look backwards and, fiat has been relatively stable for a relatively long period of time. I mean, the U.S. hasn't had hyperinflation since its founding, and it had high inflation during the wars and particularly the Civil War. But people they look backwards and think, well, I'm good. This is America. This is the dollar. It's going to be okay. And yet, if you look at the policies that we're following, if you look at the deficits that we're running, if you look at the way we're printing money to support those deficits, these are the kinds of things that when they're done in other countries that don't have the world's reserve currency, they lead to inflation, sometimes to hyperinflation. And we're doing the exact same things. Now, other people say, well, we've got all the military, we've got all the guns, blah, blah, blah. Well, fine. But unless, we want to start a world war and force people into using our money, which I don't think we're going to do, people have the choice on what money to use. And everyone has a choice. Everyone wakes up every morning, they can decide, where am I going to put my savings? Am I going to leave them in the bank? I'm going to buy a bond? We're going to buy a stock, whatever. Or we're going to buy gold, silver, or Bitcoin. And, look, some Americans are figuring it out. I get a kick out of the fact that Costco, every quarterly report I try and listen to their earnings report. And they talk about how many gold bars they're selling.
Oh, yeah.
So, people would say these average American Costco shoppers. I know I shop there. I love the place. They're buying gold, right? Why? Well, because they kind of know that it can't be debased, right?
Yeah.
And so, that trend, I think that trend is going to continue. So, in my view, Bitcoin has no top, and gold and silver have no top because fiat really has no bottom. I mean, if it sounds extreme, but I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's a likely case. I think it's a tail case. It used to be an extreme tail case. It's becoming less extreme, but there's a tail case that says that fiat currencies all fail, and under what time frame, unclear. Certainly could be many, many years. I tend to think it might be faster than that, but I don't want to try and panic people. But my point is that you don't even need fiat to fail for Bitcoin and gold to be very, very good investments on a comparative basis. I mean, since 2000, gold has outperformed the S&P 500 by quite a bit, and everyone points to the S&P as being your best inflation hedge. It hasn't outperformed the Nasdaq. I mean, the technology stocks have done much better than gold, but there you've got risk. I mean, unless you're dealing with the monopolies. I mean, it's the digital monopolies really are kind of something to behold in terms of the quality of their cash flow stream and the defensibility of their positions. I mean, perhaps someday there'll be something other than Google, but right now, it seems to be they've got one of the most defensive moats I've ever seen in any business, right?
French Enlightenment writer, philosopher, and historian Voltaire famously said, "Fiat currency always eventually returns to its intrinsic value, zero. Money printing is wealth theft, and the further we devalue the small surviving fiat currencies by creating more out of thin air, the faster they can go, the way of the scores of fiat currencies that have failed in the past due to corrupt and incompetent monetary policies." Over the years, several Bitcoin advocates have described the fiat system as a giant Ponzi scheme, which is quickly unraveling like all Ponzi schemes and would soon be reduced to zero. This might not occur anytime soon for a currency like the United States dollar, but the more they print new debt to get out of old debt, the deeper into the spiral we sink and the closer we get to a worthless currency. During his interview, Lepard discusses the fourth turning and the impending crisis, noting that we may have only a few years left before everything completely unravels. Here are more clips from the video.
It's amazing to me that nobody in Washington is talking about it. I think they're just pretending it'll go away, or they won't react until they have to react as a result of a crisis. I mean, I think we're at the end of the 80-year cycle, that started post-World War II when we had fabulous growth and the United States was on top of the world. And I marked the beginning of this fourth turning as 2008. Because that financial crisis really kind of kicked it off, right? I mean, it was huge. It was worldwide. It was significant, and the financial system nearly failed. And these cycles, they vary in length, and the model's not perfect. But if you look at them, it tends to suggest they last kind of 20 to 25 years. Some are shorter. The Civil War was shorter, although you could argue it started earlier. The point is that if that's the case, that would imply that, we will resolve this cycle sometime late this decade, early in the 2030s. And that kind of feels right to me. I think that, they're going to continue to print money. I think that inflation is going to come back. And I think that as time goes by, more and more people are going to become aware of this as an issue. I mean, we're seeing, people like Elon is aware of it. RFK Jr. is aware of it. He tried to make Trump aware of it. I think he kind of is. I don't know that he knows what to do about it. But the point is that I think that, it's going to become clear that the money is broken, as the title of Lynn's book. And as that becomes more and more clear, I think that, we'll start to look for solutions. And it could be a monetary reset. That's what Roosevelt did in the 30s. It could be a slow transition, a gradual transition, hopefully a painless transition to a more sound money system. I'm not sure, it's going to take real skill and real political leadership to pull that off, but it's possible. I think the alternative to that is we're just going to keep driving the car as fast as we can until something blows up. And they have the big print where the Fed balance sheet, if you've noticed, is kind of pre 08, it was at 800 million, 800, 900, I'm sorry, billion. 08 kicked it off, and Bernanke grew it up almost to 4 trillion. Then they brought it back down a little bit, and then COVID hit and they took it up to 9 trillion, brought it back down to 7. I mean, the next one, in my view, takes us to 25. And the good news is we might all end up being millionaires. The bad news is gasoline might be $20 a gallon, and a hamburger is going to cost $100. I mean that's kind of the way we're going, and that's why I say it's really just all math. I mean, it's in a debt-based system where you need debt for growth and you need to service that debt, and the underlying productivity and GDP is not growing at a rate that's fast enough to support the debt. The only way to fill the blank, or to make the numbers square, is to print more money. And which you can do, and we've done, and it's not uncommon. But by definition, you're not printing goods and services. So you print more money, you have the same goods and services. We're all competing for them. The cost of those goods and services is going up, and so that's the underlying problem. And really, there's nobody in Washington talking about how to address it or solve it, which is very unfortunate. But like I say, I'm hopeful that things like my book, other books, knowledge, I mean, even the mainstream is starting to say, talk about this a little bit more. I mean, you're seeing it creep into a lot of different discussions. And I think, in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be common knowledge that this monetary system is broken and, just completely broken.
At the moment, the United States has about $200 trillion in funded and unfunded liabilities, backed by $7 trillion worth of assets, dwindling tax revenues, and rapidly increasing debt expenses. That's why people like Lepard, who understand both sides of the coin, the fiat side, which he describes as nothing but credit, and the Bitcoin side, have repeatedly warned about the dangers of being completely reliant on the Ponzi scheme. While Bitcoin has a limited supply, is not controlled by any single person or entity, and is backed by the most powerful computer network in existence, the US dollar, a suitable representative for the fiat system, has an unlimited supply, is centrally controlled, and is backed by nothing. When the fiat Ponzi finally collapses, the world will scramble to get whatever is left of Bitcoin's dwindling supply at very high prices. Please share your thoughts on Lepard's price predictions for Bitcoin, gold, and silver in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.